Okay, let's dive right into this. We're watching a crisis unfold between the United States and Iran. What's been a decades-long shadow war has just completely exploded into the open, and now the entire world is on high alert.
The world literally woke up to these stunning headlines. We're talking about the highest authority in Iran, a man who has pretty much shaped the entire nation for over 3 decades, reportedly killed in a targeted attack. Look, this isn't just an assassination. This is the kind of event that could totally redraw the map of the Middle East.
So with the leader gone, the first, most critical question is, who's in charge now? Iranian state media moved fast to confirm the news, but they also reported a really devastating blow to the regime's inner circle. Members of Khamenei's family and his top aides were apparently killed right alongside him, essentially crippling the leadership in a single strike. In this huge power vacuum, a 40-day period of mourning has been declared, and to keep the country running, an interim council has been put together, including key figures like President Masoud Pezeshkian and the cleric Alireza Arafi. Their job is to somehow hold everything together until a new supreme leader can be chosen, and that whole process is just filled with uncertainty.
You know, the shockwaves from this are being felt far, far beyond the streets of Tehran. This single act has ignited a total firestorm of reaction across the globe, and believe me, not all of it has been peaceful.
The fallout was immediate and it was violent. In Karachi, Pakistan, attempts to storm the U.S. consulate left 10 people dead. Over in Baghdad, hundreds tried to breach the super-fortified Green Zone. From Kashmir to Islamabad, the streets just filled with angry demonstrators, which really shows you just how deeply this event is resonating across the entire region.
So while the world was watching all these dramatic protests on TV, another, much quieter reaction was taking place in the global markets. And this is one that has a direct line to your wallet.
And here it is, the immediate financial fallout. Oil prices just spiked. Crude oil, which was sitting around $70 a barrel, shot right up towards $80. And that jump? That reflects pure, unfiltered fear in the markets. The fear that a much wider conflict is about to choke off the world's energy supply.
To really understand that fear, you have to look at a map. Because Iran's real power isn't just the oil it produces itself, but the massive amounts of oil that it controls the passage of.
See, Iran sits right on the Strait of Hormuz, and that narrow waterway is, and I'm not exaggerating here, the planet's most critical choke point for oil. A staggering 20% of the entire world's crude supply sails right through this one tiny passage. For anyone who remembers the gas lines of the 1970s, well, this is exactly the kind of thing that can bring economies to their knees.
Just let that sink in for a second. Nearly a third of all the oil traded by sea goes through this one spot. So when you have Iranian media reporting that the strait is now effectively closed, the flow of oil from giants like Saudi Arabia and Iraq is under direct threat. Any disruption here sends ripples across the entire global economy.
And this chart here shows you exactly who feels the pain first. China is massively exposed. We're talking almost 40% of the oil passing through Hormuz is headed straight for them. It just shows how incredibly vulnerable Asian economies are to any instability in the Gulf.
And yet, while Iran is only OPEC's 4th largest producer, that 12% share is still a really big deal. If you take that supply offline and you combine it with their control over the strait, that gives Tehran an immense amount of leverage over global energy markets.
So look, this crisis didn't happen in a vacuum. It's really the culmination of decades of hostility. To really get a grasp on the stakes here, we need to quickly look back at 4 key moments that basically set the stage for everything that's happening today.
What's really interesting when you look at this timeline is the pattern that you see. It starts with the US-backed coup back in '53 to control oil. That leads directly to the Islamic Revolution in '79 and the hostage crisis that just completely shattered relations. Fast forward to today, and it's basically a Cold War, fought through nuclear negotiations and proxy forces. It's a 70-year cycle of intervention and retaliation.
So, with their leader gone and with this incredibly bitter history in mind, the world is just holding its breath. What is Iran going to do next? Well, analysts see the path splitting in 2 very, very different directions.
Okay, so the first path is a symbolic response. Think things like cyber attacks or having their proxy groups, the allied militias they support across the Middle East, cause some trouble. This lets them save face without kicking off an all-out war. But then there's the second path, a significant response. This means direct military strikes on U.S. assets, or a full-on attempt to close the Strait of Hormuz. And that is the absolute nightmare scenario for the global economy.
And what makes this whole calculation even more complicated is some new military hardware. Iran has reportedly gotten its hands on advanced supersonic ship-killer missiles from China and Russia. And experts are calling this a potential game-changer, something that poses a really severe threat to any naval forces in the region and just raises the stakes of any confrontation.
And this is why all of this matters to you. Because even if a full-scale war is avoided, the market is already pricing in this new risk. Analysts believe the most likely outcome is oil settling somewhere in the $90 to $100 range. That's going to reflect higher insurance and shipping costs in what is now a much more dangerous part of the world.
So we're left with this. You've got an interim government making huge decisions under immense pressure, with new, dangerous weapons at its disposal, and a population that's demanding revenge. In a region this volatile, the line between a calculated response and an uncontrollable all-out war has never been thinner, and the entire world is watching to see which way they step.